I'm Nate Eaton, and here in our studio today is Candice Cooley, who has been doing some remarkable stuff over the past few months in the state of Utah, where her son Dylan Rounds was found almost a year ago.
Yeah, April 9th.
Can you believe it?
No, I can't.
But in that year, as I mentioned, you've done some stuff. James Brenner has now been sentenced to prison. You held Dylan's memorial service, and then you have been working to get legislation passed in Utah to hopefully help in other situations that might come along similar to Dylan's. Tell me about the legislation.
So we've passed a couple big bills this year, one of the biggest being the HB 366, and that is on forensic cell phone data. So what this bill states is if you go missing tomorrow and the police think it's foul play or you're just missing or exigent circumstances, they're able to pull that immediately with an undeniable warrant. A lot of people get confused on, we can already get a phone ping. Yes, we know that, but it's like the example I gave the Senate of Utah. So today I left Hazleton, Idaho. I have 2 phones. So I make sure to never have one of my phones on. I turn it off. So if police go to look for me, that phone's in Hazleton, Idaho, but I'm in Idaho Falls. But if that phone travels with me, that data is talking to the towers without my participation. So it's a whole new ball game when you talk a ping versus forensic phone data. So we're talking TikTok, Facebook, Gmail, Temu. I mean, we could go on and on and on the internet apps. They're consistently talking to the towers without your participation. And that's huge. If you don't make a phone call, you could be 200 miles away from where they're looking for you. So
what you're saying is this law would allow police to get that data if you go missing.
Yeah, and so think about Dylan's case. So in Dylan's case, we did get that warrant, but it took a couple weeks. That is what led to find Dylan's phone in the pond, was the data, not the ping. So we had to wait 2.5 weeks for a warrant to get that data to obtain the phone, whereas now it's the day of. They will have it the day of.
Which really speeds things up in those critical moments.
Yeah, and we think about, like we talked, missing skiers, hikers, snow machiners, hunters, all of that also comes into play on this. That is still a missing person. It doesn't have to be foul play. So immediately you're going to know where they're at, and these are exact GPS locations. A cell phone ping gives you a 15-mile circumference. Yeah. And then if you got 3 or 4 towers, then you got to circulate and triangulate, and it takes time.
Right, but this will give you that exact location.
Exact GPS location.
So that bill passed in Utah.
Yep, the Speaker of the House signed it Friday.
That's amazing. And any progress on possibly getting a bill like that in Idaho?
Yeah, so I was working with a couple of the state reps this year that kind of dropped the ball on us. I got some on board for next year, and I have no doubt we will cruise right through session next year with it and have it here in Idaho. We don't have as many violent crimes, missing people in Idaho. We're a pretty awesome state, but we do have them. And there's a lot of missing people that have never been found that could have been, with the education and being able to obtain these warrants without a judge saying no. This fringes on the right of, a person's privacy. When you're missing, you don't care about your privacy.
Right.
We're not geo-fencing, nothing like that. Where are you at? We'll find you, make sure you're safe.
And that could lead, if you don't find the person, you find their device.
Right.
And then that could lead to further clues. Are you looking at other legislation too?
Yeah, so we have so much that lab funding is huge. We're working on a case up in Oregon right now where there's actually a partial human cranium in the lab. We have raised the funds for that to get it sent to a public or a private lab to be tested. So there's 3 young gentlemen, Shane Springer, Chase Robertson, and Michael Bryson, missing in the area where this partial cranium was found. It's been in the lab for over a year.
And they don't know whose it is.
And they're saying it's going to be over another year before it's tested. So when we're up there searching on Brian Furkey's case in January, I got talking with the detectives. And they're like, if you can get this moved, let's do it. But the state labs don't have the funding. The police departments don't have the funding. So I mean, it's the first test is going to be 3,000, and we're hoping it is Shane Springer. It's closer to where he was missing, but if not, then we move on to Chase, and if not, then we move on to Michael. So you could be talking $7 to $8 grand in testing that the funding's not there. And so as I've worked through legislature and I hear some of these things, these tens of millions of dollars in the budget for this or that or whatever, and I'm like, okay. Right. I'm like, let's. We
need $3,000.
Yes, yeah. So I mean, we really need to get some better funding. I mean, the cat's out of the bag in Dylan's case. They stopped testing on those remains in the burn barrel. We know it's human male DNA. We're pretty much 100% positive it's still, and I'm still working through the chain to still get it tested because we deserve to know. You know,
what's the reason why they stopped testing?
Because James Brenner confessed.
They're saying they're pretty sure it's Dylan, but 99% sure. Yeah,
but whatever.
Well, if it's not,
so it's and that always leads to another question: what if it's not?
Yeah.
But Box Elder doesn't have the funds to do it, and it's at a private lab now too. So we will get that moving forward. But that is something that should be in our state budgets.
Yeah. Talk to me about this other thing that you've been busy, Candice.
Yes.
You're working with law enforcement to help training.
Yes.
What's that about?
So last year I met Detective Aaron when we were all at CrimeCon, and we did a thing on ethics, and I hit him up about RTT data, and I've learned a lot. So right now what we're doing is we're holding a training April 1st and 2nd in Utah since our bill passed. So this is great. We got this bill passed. These officers have access to it. Half of them don't know what it is. So what good does that do? So we're bringing officers from counties. We've got a couple from Elko County coming. We've got some from Parker, Arizona, a couple from Grand Junction, Colorado. We're looking at Eastern Idaho, Magic Valley, and then all the surrounding Utah communities. And Dylan's Legacy is looking to fund it all. Usually it's $250 per officer for the trainings, but I think we're going to get it funded. But we can pass the bill. We can say, hey, this is so helpful. I talk to so many departments across the country. Northern Idaho is one of the worst. I tell a sheriff, we need to pull this guy's phone data, and he literally thought I was crazy. He had no clue. We know where his ping was. I said, that's not enough. So we bring in the education. So it's a 2-day training. It goes through so much. And then Aaron also formed what's called badge apps. So a lot of law enforcement agencies, they use Cellubrite, LexisNexis, right? Well, they have to pay for that service, most of them. And then the other problem with that service is if you're going to LexisNexis, you're taking a possible homicide investigation, you're sending it off to a computer techie behind a desk who gets to look at everything and the case files. So now you've got a third party involved.
Right.
With Badge App, it is only for law enforcement. They have a login. They can print out warrant forms off of it for TikTok, Google Maps, whatever, AccuWeather. Once that warrant's served and they get the information, it automatically downloads and gives them a real-time map that they don't have to input anything. It does it for them.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it is super nice, and it's free, and it's not a requirement for the training. It's just, Aaron has just developed this amazing system because he's worked on so many homicide cases. And if you go to the badgeapps.com, as a public, you're not going to get a whole lot of information. You can read about it, but it's not like you can log in and go, I don't even have a login, and I'm one of the trainers for it.
Right. But law enforcement could log in.
Yeah, but you can see the examples of when they track, I believe it was Aaron, him live driving around through data, not phone pings, and that's on the front page, and you can see everywhere live.
Wow.
So that's huge.
So it's $250 per officer, and how many officers are you hoping?
So we're hoping, I would like to bring 4 out of the Eastern Idaho area. I'd like to get 4 sponsored out of the Eastern Idaho area. I am bringing 2 from Southern Idaho. Like I said, then 2 Nevada, 2 Parker, and 2 Grand Junction. So, and then I think the other 24 to 26 will fill in from Weber County, Salt Lake, and yes, I have extended an invite to Box Elder County because this is education that people need to know.
Yeah.
It's very important. And so we've never been anti-law enforcement. We've always supported law enforcement. We had a bad go for, in the beginnings of stuff, but now I can see the lack. I work on all these cases and I deal with these families, and I'm on the phone with law enforcement agents across the country daily, and I'm like, did you do this? Did you pull that? And they're like, no, how do you do that? And then some of them are like, yeah, and then we got it back from here. And then, sometimes they're like, well, it's been a year. And I'm like, it's Verizon, it's too late. That's 7 to 10 days. But if it's, T-Mobile, a year's plausible. So there's a lot of working pieces to it. That's...
That a lot of departments, as you mentioned, they don't deal with these violent crimes or these missing people, and then when it happens, they're building their map as it happens. So you're looking for sponsors,
yep,
right?
We're looking for and it can be, if your family's law enforcement and you say, hey, Uncle Joe, you want to go to this and I'll sponsor you, great. Any deputy, any detective, anybody can have access to this as long as they're law enforcement. And that does not include fire department or search and rescue. And it is law enforcement
Sworn
only.
in. Okay.
They have to have a badge number, hence badge apps.
And if someone watching wants to sponsor, what should they do?
So they can just go to DylanRoundsLegacy.org, and it's actually on the pop-up.
Okay.
And then you can put in the officer's name, or you can just put in the county, and I'll reach out to the county and have them send.
Or just make a donation.
Yeah, you can just make a donation. So it is usually, on average, so I do believe we have a free room. So on average, it's usually about $8,900 is the training when you fill the room, up to $40,000. But Aaron is doing us a solid, and we're going to cap it at $5,500. So now, so people understand where this $5,500 goes is to maintain the app, to have technical support, for people to be able to call in. This is a complete nonprofit. This is not a money-making deal. It's just the money's got to come from somewhere to cover the cost of keeping the app going, and so it comes from the trainings.
I see.
Yep.
Okay, well, go to Dylan's Legacy Foundation, the website. We'll put the link here, and you can read it in this story so that you can find out more information and perhaps donate if you're interested in sponsoring these officers, and hopefully help in other situations that come along.
Yes. Yep. Like I said, hikers, snowmobilers, skiers, we pack our phones on the ski hill. Half the time we got service.
Yeah.
Same thing with snow machining. You get lost, your last phone ping's usually a couple hours ago.
Right.
But your data is immediate. So
very cool.
Yes.
Thank you, Candice. Good seeing you.
You too, Nate.